Mike Fiorito is an author, a freelance journalist, and his new book, For All We Know, is basically a literary excursion into the lived experience of the UFO phenomenon. It's interwoven into a tapestry of music, psychedelics, and the flux and flow of everyday life. It's written in the first person's perspective, and the book provides readers with a biographical snapshot of the process by which anomalous experiences are perceived, processed, and incorporated into a personal perspective on the cosmos and the human condition. It's a very different take from all of the other UFO literature I've ever read, and I sat down with Mike, who's an awesome guy. Check this out.
That's cool. I'm one thing just to let you know, I have a little bit of a sore throat, but I can talk. I'm fine. I have my Barry White kind of voice going.
So say I got some whiskey here. I don't know if that'll help you through the TV, through the thing, but
it usually helps after the fact.
Yeah.
But during, I play music, I play live.
Oh, nice.
I have a kind of rule. There's like 2 beers, great.
Mm-hmm.
2 beers and a whiskey, maybe. Anything more, it's downhill. It's
Everything
just
just
the
goes
quality
bad.
just goes plummets.
What do you play? What do you play?
I play guitar.
Oh yeah, so that's when you end up in having like a 15-minute solo that nobody wants to hear.
Yeah, exactly. What it is like you start you can forget the words, or you get sloppy on. Do you play an instrument?
Yeah, I play guitar, but not well at all. Like I suck. I've been playing since I was a kid, but I'll pick it up every 6 months now, and play, and then I'll be like, oh shit, I forgot all of this.
Yeah. No, I've invested a good amount of time.
Yeah.
And so I play live too. And part of that is to keep the muscle memory and just to keep, it took me so long to learn some cool version of Going to California.
Yeah.
Open tuning. I don't want to lose that.
Yeah. That's rough, man. I had a band in high school. We made a CD, and it was awesome. It was like in the 90s when grunge was huge. So we did that.
Yeah.
I was the front man, and I played guitar.
Singer?
Yeah, and I played, but my buddies in the band were like, you just need to quit playing. They just turned my amp all the way down, so I thought I was playing, and every once in a while, because it's hard to play and sing, man. It's both parts of your brain, I think. You got that whole, and the right side and the left side are fighting each other, and you're trying to, how do you do this, especially when the rhythm's not the same, and it's really hard. I mean, especially drummers. I don't know how the hell drummers sing. Like Phil Collins. There's no way. I mean, have you tried that? Have you tried to drum and sing, man?
I have.
It's hard.
I think when I was playing when I was younger, because I could do both.
Oh yeah.
And I could sing, but not well.
Right. Oh yeah.
I sang. I would be kind of not really. I was flat and sharp.
Yeah.
But I started to kind of develop my singing, and I would say I'm not the greatest singer. I'm adequate. I'm good.
Yeah.
I can do okay, and I'm in a range. So if it's Steven Tyler, probably not. If it's Barry White, probably not. But if it's a kind of there's a range. Pocket. Yeah. I mean, a lot of singers, you don't realize how Roger Daltrey is very high range.
Yeah.
Billy Joel can go very low, very high.
Right.
So you have to kind of find where you fit. Do the song like you do it.
Right.
It's kind of what I come to.
Yeah. That's good, man. That's good. I think, what's been interesting is like this whole UFO journey that I've been on is that the majority, I would say almost everybody I've spoken with, maybe a couple, but most people have some type of musical background, believe it or not. They have, they either, musicians, or, they could play an instrument, or they grew up playing an instrument or something like that. A couple of my good buddies, we all DJ'd in the 90s, believe it or not. Like we all DJ'd, in clubs, vinyl. And it's like, wow. Like, I think it was house and techno, the other guys that did hip hop, but it's still, it's like a weird, it's an interesting correlation, to see that, those two things together.
If you have a story about it, let's talk, because I'm actually doing some research on that. You probably saw a lot of music, read a lot of music in the book.
Yeah.
So the book is infused with music, and that's an important. I'm a music journalist, so I've done a lot of music journalism, and I'm interested in music. So
it adds a big layer to the story. I mean, like words on paper, they're great. I mean, and the way you write is awesome. I dug your book.
Thank you.
The part about that is that, how music for people will add a time and place, or that feeling that is like part of your brain that, reacts. Like a lot of people will say, I remember the first time I heard that song, where I was at, what I was doing. It
Right.
was exactly this summer. And, they'll go into the whole story. Other people, it's either good or bad too.
Yeah.
There's,
Right.
both sides of that, the whole human emotion spectrum. So it's cool to have that, the way you wrote that into the story, where it has that arc where it kind of takes you to that, even if you don't appreciate the music, or you might not even know it, but you still kind of have a sense of the era, the way that you wrote it in there. And,
Yeah.
it was kind of like it kind of set the scene, especially with the characters, the way you wrote them, like, how it was a big deal for them to be heading to the concerts and going to these things. And along that is part of the experience, a lot of times, counterculture, let me use this term
Yeah.
loosely, but, a lot of the experience of going to concerts, even still to this day, is, dabbling in psychedelics and things like that, and what does that do to the music? Is it enhance the music? And then people that are writing the music, were they doing that? Is that a connection that people don't even understand, as well? Are you hitting on their wavelength with the music because maybe it was written under the influence of the same substance you're taking, that collective consciousness thing that I always come back to, that maybe that's how you tap into it.
Yeah. I mean, ragas were written. I listen to ragas, and they're certainly uh, a good mood setting for psychedelics. I don't know if they were written on psychedelics,
Right.
um, but there are many pathways to get to that state of mind.
Yeah.
It could be through meditation, it could be through a psychedelic, it could be through using sound.
Hmm.
So there are things like binaural beats
Yeah.
or sound baths,
Hmm.
or I've gone
Singing
to
bowls, and
singing
singing.
bowls,
Yeah.
gong yoga, and it's surprising. It seems as if those kinds of things, and I was listening to your Exo Academian when he was
Oh yeah.
rogue at that time. We didn't know
Oh
who he
yeah.
was.
The masked man before he actually,
Yeah,
yeah, came unmasked. Yeah, for sure.
I loved his Frank Sinatra "Come Fly with Me" album cover. That was real funny.
Yeah.
But uh, the idea that you can use something. There's some medium
Hmm.
that takes you to some place that's deep.
Hmm.
So there's this sense of our ego, this sense of our rational mind, this sense of our everyday reality.
Hmm.
But there are ways to kind of dip into, to slalom into that deeper, uh, that whole other deep world inside of us. And that could be, I mean, we do it all the time through dreaming.
You're right. Yeah, you're right.
We do it in little ways through daydreaming.
Hmm.
Throughout the day, we do it, and we dip our toes into it in the kinds of entertainment we seek. Isn't it
Hmm.
funny? We're so hyper rational. Did I lose you?
No, I'm here.
Oh, something
Yeah.
went wrong with my headset.
Oh.
It must have been some kind of, cross dimensional communication. Uh, but what I was saying is that uh, we go into that deeper sense of ourselves, and we could be the most rational, or conceive of ourselves as the most everyday, I don't know, 9 to 5, Monday to Friday kind of person. But
Hmm.
we thirst for things like Harry Potter,
Hmm.
Lord of the Rings, or whatever.
Hmm.
I always find that so interesting that people defend their rationality and the consensus everyday reality because we want to be in control. We want to
Hmm.
have one up on the uncertainty of the universe.
Well,
You
nobody
know,
likes to lose control. I mean, honestly,
I don't like it.
yeah, no, I mean, well, I mean, I guess it's in controlled, but I mean, I was just thinking of it in terms of, when you maybe some type of medication that you're on, not necessarily trying to,
Right,
experience that, and you don't actually have control of your faculties because of the way it's interacting with you, not having that control to be able to be cognitive enough, like, shit, I can't drive, right? I can't, how am I going to
right.
navigate through life? And it's interesting to see how the whole, the way we look at mental illness now, in a different light, and schizophrenia and things like that. I mean,
Mhm.
are those people really, you know, uh, they're different than us, but does that necessarily make them, bad? Is just because they're on another spectrum, right? Is that, and I'm
Mhm.
using bad, I guess that my English is failing me here, but you know what I'm saying, where before
Sure.
we'd look at this as, we just put these people away and lock them up, but maybe they're experiencing the same reality that we are, but in a different frequency, a different realm. Maybe they're seeing things a lot clearer, clearer than we are at any given
Yeah.
moment, right? And we're just beginning to understand a little bit of that, whereas previously it was like, you don't fit in the box,
Hmm.
put you away, right? But maybe they have an access to things that we don't cognitively, really.
Yeah. And as I was listening to your conversation with, we can call him by name,
Yeah, yeah, Darren,
Darren King.
Darren King,
Uh,
yeah.
there's a book by Donald Hoffman, and it's about how we've evolved we've evolved a sense of reality because it's efficient for a few things. It's efficient to get food,
Hmm.
to stay safe, uh, to secure some kind of home situation,
Hmm.
to procreate,
Hmm.
and to pass on our genes. That's
Hmm.
that's essentially why, as you know, evolved creatures who've evolved from other life forms.
Hmm.
But in doing that, we have to forego a lot.
Right.
So the sense of what is real, well, it's the sense of what's going to get us from point A to point B efficiently.
Hmm.
But the question of real becomes there are realities. So you mentioned people with mental illness, people who have brain injuries.
Hmm.
Uh, there are realities. There's a spectrum of reality, and who's to say who has the ultimate and the only reality? And I
Right.
think that's a battle that we in the ufology field we struggle with because you have this dominant kind of sense of what this scientism
Hmm.
that dominates the conversation. It dominates the academy, the
Hmm.
academic world,
Right.
and even just the everyday.
Hmm.
The everyday. If you said to most people, you said, "Do you believe that there are sentient beings in the universe?" Most people would probably say, "Yeah,
Right.
sure."
Yeah.
Then if you said, "Well, I just had an experience," oh, come on, you're putting me on.
And I
And
always,
what's
yeah, that's the part that always gets me. And this is the same thing with ufology when I got into it. It doesn't matter at all in your spectrum unless it happens to you. It's a very personal thing. It's a very thing, or that happens to somebody that's very close to you that you love and you trust. Where I was a kid, I always say my father had experience. He saw UFOs.
Mhm.
I grew up my whole entire life. There's no reason I would doubt him. He wouldn't lie to me about something like that. Saw a couple. So I grew up my whole life thinking they were real. Where other people didn't. It wasn't until later in my life that I had, actual, sightings myself and, CE5 kind of bringing them down myself. But yeah, other people, like you said, it doesn't exist, right? Or for them, it doesn't, but the framing is always interesting to me where you just replace the word alien with angel, but then it's okay for people who are religious, right?
Mhm.
Or jinn, right? If people are like, so you can just shift the term around to people that are I don't know if it's culturally or what the term I'm looking for is here, but
Yeah.
if it fits your paradigm, it's not a big deal, right?
Yeah, and I do think that's interesting. I think people may find it disturbing because it upsets their sense of, and I'm not putting those people down.
No, not at all. No.
Life is hard
Yeah.
and life is complex. We uh most of us just struggle to get through the day and to just manage whatever it is we're trying to do.
Yeah.
And having then entertaining. Let's put aside the people who have the experiences
Right.
and that the struggle to be understood, to be accepted, the preponderance of eyewitness testimonies across time, across cultures, it's just too much to ignore.
Right.
It's too much to ignore. But, people want to live in a comfortable, what they believe to be. They want to be in control. That's
Yeah.
really where we started.
Yeah.
And I understand that I had a stomach virus like 2 years ago or something.
Mm,
And I did the stupid thing. I woke up, I had a little bit, but it was minor,
mm,
small
mm,
stomach virus. I, Later on that night, it seemed fine.
mm.
I had a couple of beers with a
Yeah.
friend. He has an art studio. I went on his roof. It was a summer night. It was beautiful. But that beer must have mixed up with that stomach
Yeah.
virus.
Yeah. Yeah.
I came home, I went to sleep, and I was sort of sweating profusely,
Hmm.
right? I don't remember anything.
Mm.
I woke up. And I woke up, I told my wife, I said, I don't feel well. She said, you got out of bed, stood up, and you fell backwards. Boom. Went right into my guitars, which are right over here. She
Wow.
said, your guitar broke your fall. It's a good thing you
Wow.
have two of them. I don't remember a thing. All I know is I woke up and I'm sitting in our nook, kitchen nook, and
Mhm.
ambulance guy is putting, electrodes on me. And I'm like,
Wow.
what's going on? So that feeling of
Yeah.
something happened, your it's on either side, the experience of something happened to me and it happened to me. I saw something, I don't understand it, or I'm rejecting that reality because it doesn't comport to my sense of comfortability and my control of the world. I mean, there's Monday Night Football, goddamn. I have my investments and I
Yeah.
have these things I have to do.
Hmm.
So, but I don't, in a way, I wrote this book for all we know, in a way to court some of that point of view. You'll
So
notice it's not a typical kind of UFO book.
yeah, that's I was going to ask you. I mean, you had to have had an experience to get you interested in this. You had to have had your own personal experience. I know the book is fiction,
Yeah,
and but something most people that I've talked to that have gotten into this, it's not because they thought it was cool. You know what I mean? It's
yeah,
because something happened to them, or and they had to figure it out, right? Or at least start the investigation. So,
yeah.
did
I'll
something like
talk
that
about that.
happen? Yeah,
I dream a lot about I've had all my life dreams, apocalyptic dreams,
yeah.
dreams of UFO dreams. Some of them
Okay,
are in the book.
yeah,
Um, that's a contact modality for me
right.
through psychedelics.
Hmm.
You have experience of the other.
Right.
I mean, you are the other in a
Yeah,
sense. The other is many, and
yeah.
you are the other, and they are many. That sounds like a song. Actually, Frank Zappa has a song. We are the other people. We are the other people.
Oh
We
yeah,
are the other people.
Zampa was
You're the
switched
other
on.
people too. He was switched on big
Hmm.
time.
Yeah, he
But
was.
my inroads to this, they really go back. They start as a kid.
Hmm.
I was a kid of the space generation, the Apollo generation,
Right.
fascinated by. I mean, I used to go to the library and I would. Okay, does anyone listen? I would actually steal books that had pictures of spaceships.
So that was
It's
real. Like
just
that was part of your
that is,
book,
oh,
right?
that's in the book. Oh,
Yeah.
geez.
You
Yeah.
just outed
So,
yourself.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's true. I
But you
did.
set your
And
buddy up, I think, in the book. So I don't know if
well,
that's true or
that is true as well. So what I did is just for people to hear,
not. Hmm.
you know, I wasn't the brightest, the sharpest tool in the toolbox,
Yeah.
but I noticed that as I would go into the library, get books on spaceships, take them home, read them, keep them, have a library. Always
Yeah.
wanted a library. Then I noticed, and I'd never seen this before, these kind of what looked like these detector of some type, but I hadn't seen that yet. It hadn't occurred. This has to be about this has to be about 1978 or
Okay.
something, 78, 77.
Oh, so they finally had like the metal bars that you walk through
Right.
the yeah,
I'd
yeah.
never seen that before. So my good friend Joe, who's, sorry, Joe, he's a couple of notches, dumber than I am. And I said, Joe, here's this book. Could you meet me outside? Okay, put this in your bag.
Yeah.
And it went, bzzz. And he, as a devil that I was, he didn't even realize that I set him up. Um, but yeah, so I was really into science fiction. I read when Omni came out. I still have the first 24
Nice.
issues. My dad got it for me. And then later on, and this all ties up,
Hmm.
I think, John, I studied philosophy and I studied psychology.
Oh, nice.
So in philosophy, I took philosophy of mind and
Hmm.
philosophy of science. Philosophy of mind is, how do you define consciousness?
Hmm.
So you kind of go into, metaphysics and this is stuff we're running into in the ufology conversation.
Right.
Is consciousness something in here? Is consciousness in my brain? Is consciousness? out there.
Hmm.
So now I'm simplifying it.
Oh yeah, no, but that's a good way to do that, right? Is it internally created? Are we a transducer? Are we just experience it through our own lens? Is it omnipresent? Do we create it in our own minds? I always thought
Exactly.
it was interesting to say that I saw something and I posted it a couple of weeks ago, but it's like for every person that you meet on the street, and I'm butchering this, but it's even your own family that your version, their version of you as a
Hmm.
person is completely different than your own, and
Yeah.
that's completely different for every single person that you know in the world. And to me, that's like it's kind of mind blowing when you think of it, because everybody thinks of you differently than you think of yourself, and each person is
Yeah.
individual in that thought.
It's
So
incredible.
yeah, it's incredible, and I think it's great. And so it says a lot about I think the phenomenon because many conversations we've had where there's two people sitting together, one person experiences something, the other one doesn't. It's just the way your
Yeah.
perception is. You see it, you don't. You choose not to see it, you do. And all those things tie back to consciousness. That's where the whole key is on the whole thing. It's how do you boil it down to what the essence is. And I keep coming back to consciousness. That's the only thing that I can see as the consistent.
Hmm.
Race, creed, color, whatever, it doesn't matter. Your religion, age, throughout history, right? The
Hmm.
the only thing that is omnipresent is consciousness, right? But so are we
Yeah.
creating these things with our own consciousness? I mean, it goes back to those theories. Are we just experiencing them? I don't know. Nobody has that
Or all
answer.
of it.
Right. Yeah. Hmm.
So take a thought experiment. Let's just say I take just something came to mind. I take a battery from an appliance.
Hmm.
I take a battery and I shove it into the ground. Not, it's jutting out though.
Hmm.
So I leave it there. Let's say, come back. Now there are flowers around it. There's little insects,
Hmm.
microbes. So how do the microbes see it?
Right.
How does the insect perceive that battery? How does the flower perceive that battery?
Hmm.
Let's say, how do I perceive that battery? How does someone 500 years ago perceive that battery?
Right.
How does someone from an indigenous culture that's never seen a battery see that? How does
Hmm.
someone from a million years from now see that battery?
Right.
And it equates something to the Buddhist idea of emptiness,
Hmm.
which is, and this all relates to, I'm trying to relate it back to the phenomena that we manifest, we construct the reality we see.
Mm.
So I come at it with the constructs from the culture, from my
Mm.
time, from my experience,
Mm.
and I see, now, is there something out there? Mm, I bring to it. I manifest. I make what it is.
Mm.
And there are collective constructs that you and I know what a battery is because I mentioned it,
Right.
but there are people that don't. There are
Hmm.
people that will fall out of that
Right.
radius of comprehension.
Correct. Yeah.
And so I came to this, to go back to your question. I
Yeah.
came to it. I've been spending a lifetime kind of coming to this. I also took in college. I took philosophy of science.
Hmm.
So you study science. There's a book. I'm sure every person interested in ufology has read Thomas Kuhn's Structure of a Scientific Revolution, and it's uh, how does science go about its business, its
Hmm.
daily business. There's
Hmm.
kind of like regular science.
Right.
So there's
Like
someone comes
business
up with,
science, right?
yeah, someone comes up with a paradigm.
Yeah.
Someone, let's just say for simplicity's sake, Newtonian physics.
Right.
There's this we are we have a paradigm, and where we've developed tools, theories to corroborate this paradigm that we've developed.
Right.
And then there's a pilage of data that's anomalous. We say, well, we don't quite know. We don't know
Right.
what to do with that.
Hmm.
Um, then someone comes along, Einstein comes along. Newton said that gravity was something out there.
Hmm.
And they initially thought, well, that sounds mystical. This is against the church.
Oh.
That sounds creepy. Einstein came along with a new paradigm.
Hmm.
And he said gravity is part of space-time. It's part of the space-time fabric.
Hmm.
By the way, Newton's idea eventually obviously became, just accepted
Hmm.
science, facts.
Right.
Einstein comes along, breaks that paradigm, a new paradigm is created. And it's interesting when you look at uh, the the dons of science who are guarding, they're guarding the library of accepted science.
Right. Which is a big job to
Guys,
have, you know?
it's a big job there are some people breaking through the cracks, man. You
Yeah.
look at Michio Kaku, who
Hmm.
came out and said, I just follow the facts. The
Right.
facts are leading me to, we have multiple data points. We have expert eyewitness testimony and also the data points. He
Hmm.
is a scientist.
Right.
And, objects moving 83,000 miles an hour in 3 seconds.
Right.
They turn on a dime. It's not like if I'm, flying an airplane, I'd have to go like this or rocket.
Right.
I couldn't go zip.
Right.
So there's cracks in it. Avi Loeb, who I don't really know too much about. I mean, I'm following a little bit,
Right.
but he's openly talking about this stuff. He's talking about interdimensional travel and that this is now maybe what we should look at CERN.
Hmm.
People like these people have they have the hearts and minds of the popular science.
And they're pioneers too, right? Like we are talking about, they're going against the grain. They're going against the
Mm-hmm.
grain of science. And there's a lot of people that still look down on them. And, there's other people that are, slowly waking up to the fact that,
Mm-hmm.
that this might be a possibility, being more open minded. You see that in religion too. You see that with the Vatican. You see that with, some of the other religions that are just saying, hey, yeah, God could have populated other worlds, he,
Right.
and other things like that. So I think we're slowly reaching to a point in society where it's okay to have these conversations out loud,
Yeah.
where I think it used to be just the norm. I honestly think at one point it was the norm. When we go back to the days of, look at the Native Americans, it was the
Yeah.
our sky brothers or sky fathers, they came down. It's just accepted, right? And some of the other indigenous cultures are that way as well.
Yeah.
And when, to circle back around, I think you're right. When we got to the point where we had to provide for our families and, make things easy for ourselves, we started putting blinders on a lot of those things, right? On purpose or via society. But your book was one of the most interesting non-UFO UFO books I think I read.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, as I've told people, I don't write on spec,
Yeah.
and I don't want to. I wanted it to. You had AJ Hartley on. That's
Yeah.
how I
Yeah.
listened to that great interview,
Yeah. He's just a great guy.
and he said, I write what I love.
Hmm.
He writes different kinds of stuff, kids books, crime,
Yeah. Whatever he wants.
uh,
That's what I think
and
everybody should be, man. Just, yeah, you can't be just like you're the science fiction writer. Now you're in science fiction or you're the history guy, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
I wanted to
Yeah.
have an earthy feel.
Yeah.
I mean, I have as an author, you have objectives,
Yeah.
so you have an agenda,
Hmm.
and so the title of the book, For All We Know, you'll notice the character is it's kind of dopey.
Hmm.
He's sort of uh he does a lot of dopey things. I think. I mean, I wanted it to come across like that. He
Well, I think
doesn't.
yeah, it's coming of age kind of as
Yeah,
well, right? Definitely it's kind of a
exactly.
coming of age story where, he's growing up in an environment and he's just kind of feeling it out. And, cultural references, like we said, we talked about earlier, the music and, entering those things and then him experiencing things and just kind of getting into it was interesting.
Hmm.
And then, huge props to the whole meditation instructor with that whole part of that
Thank you.
book. That kind of got me into the like, where's he going with this? I'm trying to figure out. I'm like,
Yeah.
man, I don't know if I would have done some of that stuff that this guy was doing, but he pushed his boundaries, and I kind of read into that as more like, he's really doing this to prove to himself more than anything else that he can, be more open open to things that you look at from a societal aspect. It would not be, you'd be labeled one way or the other if you were doing some of these things, right? So
Yeah. I wanted it to be dangerous and
yeah,
uncertain.
yeah,
there
Yeah.
was danger in some of these things. And in those places of danger, there are epiphanies too.
Mhm. Right.
Having a gun put to your head is a powerful experience, and it,
Yeah.
it it will shock you. John Mack talks about the uh, the abduction experience is a shock experience. The
Uh,
encounter experience is a shock experience.
yeah. Yeah. It's an
And
ontological shock as well.
right,
You know, I mean,
yeah,
just from that boy, it's just, and that's
completely.
the thing you go back to, like, I think it's probably part of it, right? I mean, I've talking to Dr. Jeffrey Long and other people that are in the ufology field. A lot of these people have had near death experiences prior to
Mhm.
having any type of UFO experience. They got into a horrible car accident. They were
Right.
dead. They saw God. They saw angels. They saw things. They saw their whatever. Right after that, they'll see UFOs all the time. Things will happen to them. Things
Right.
will fly off the wall. They'll have experiences. They'll know things before other people know. And it's like, all right, that happened to them physically. We know that happened to them. It's documented. This happened to them. But another thing that I'm thinking, like PTSD, that has to be part of this as well. There's probably scores of people that have had PTSD from
Hmm.
war, from anything, right? Abuse, whatever. That probably when you crack your paradigm, it's almost like it's like cracking an egg.
That's
Taking a
it.
hard boiled egg and kind of dropping it, and it's kind of spiders. It's not all the way broken, but it's still held together. But those little cracks that show up, you can other
Hmm.
things are poking through. And I think that's kind of a big deal with this whole ufology. It's not just things in the sky,
Hmm.
not at all.
I mean, Kripal has said trauma. Jeff Kripal has said
Yeah.
has a lot to do with it.
Mhm.
Not always. I mean,
Mhm.
it's there
You're
are
right.
many things of a kind.
Right.
Some people are gifted visionaries. They're just
Right.
born
Hmm.
with this high propensity for uh, being able to
Strangeness.
hear. Yeah, strangeness. Yeah, perception.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Perception. Yeah. High strangeness is what, yeah, I can't remember who quoted high strangeness and it's escaping right now, but yeah, I mean, that's definitely it.
maybe
And
it's
then,
Alan Hynek.
yeah,
Is it
Hynek. Yeah,
J.L.
you're right.
Hynek?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Alan Hynek. It was, yeah,
yeah,
high strangeness and the whole, synchronicities and all those things that follow. And yeah, and then the thing that gets me, and I don't, you didn't really touch about on it in your book. You didn't go there, but for me, being a Freemason, secret
yeah,
societies, and all these other things, it touches upon the esoteric, and I've seen that more and more and more. As I'm getting into this,
yeah,
um, but it's another one of those things where you call it this and we call it that, and I call it this and you call it that. Um, I remember having a great conversation, Jamie Paul Lamb. I had him on the show, and great friend, brother, frater of mine. He's an amazing guy, and he's like, I don't know about aliens, and I'm like, it's non-human intelligences, it's non-earthly intelligence. I just remember him stopping in a parking lot and just looking at me and going, just all the light bulbs firing off, and he's like,
right.
shit. It's like
Yeah,
I never thought of it in that light. It's the same thing. We're just calling it different, right? It's just calling it
yeah.
a different thing, right?
And
Different
that's what
label,
I love, these people that are synthesizing.
right?
And that's what I'm trying to do. I don't know if you've read Patrick Harpur. I don't know how to say his name.
Mhm.
Harpur. He's an English writer. And he synthesizes. There are other people doing this too, but
Mhm.
he does it beautifully in elegant prose,
Mhm.
um, synthesizing folklore,
Mm.
mythology,
Oh, cool.
ufology, uh, angelology,
Hmm.
bringing them all together and showing world religions
Right.
and showing how you're reading one story and you are just reading a story, a folk story
Mm.
about in the Irish countryside where an angel appeared bathed in light, and above it was a disc that was illuminated by something else. And he doesn't say it,
Right.
but you were just reading a kind of folk story that was told by someone that was related to in a book.
Yeah.
I mean, that sounds like a UFO experience.
Yeah.
And then, mythology is more kind of formalized, whereas a folk story is me telling you. Mythology gets to be, it's more kind of written and epic,
Right.
thought out and stuff.
Right.
But the parallels between these things. And believe it or not, in my inane way, I was trying to create these stories that are relatable,
Right.
that everyone has had a death experience.
Right.
Someone has died.
Hmm.
Um, everyone has had a traumatic experience.
Right.
And how does that bridge to the unknowable,
Right.
the mystery, the
Hmm.
phenomena? And on some level, when we use certain words, some people run away. So you use the word paranormal,
Yeah.
some people are going to run away. They get scared.
Yeah. Right. For sure.
Um, they're more common than people. I have a friend who I is adore, very strict, kind of scientific person who said to me, I've had a UFO experience, but I don't believe in them. And I was in a place in rural Maine where why would there be any kind of military airplane? I was
Uh,
with my sister, so it wasn't just me. And
right.
we're looking out a bluff, and there are mountains behind the area where we live. And this object appears, this brilliantly lit object appears. It kind of hovers real
I love how
slow.
everybody justifies it. Like when you get into the beginning of it, it's like, it's like they have to set it up like, listen, I'm not crazy. I saw this shit
Right,
and so did other people. And like we
right.
all saw it. Everybody saw it. It wasn't me. I don't believe in any of it. I always tell a great story of say, I got the same buddy of mine, the same thing. If it landed in his backyard and the guy, something came out and shook his hand and took off, he would be like, nah, that didn't happen. It's the
Right,
same. It's the same thing.
right. And even as Darren was saying, there are things that happen and they feel dreamlike.
Yeah. You're
And
that in between wake and sleep type of state. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and I've said to my wife, did I just say something out loud? You know, and I'm testing certain things with her. And I was dreaming or I was
Mhm.
sleeping,
Right.
and I'm testing certain things. And I said, uh, "Are you?" Ask her a question as if she's reading my mind, or am I projecting my mind?
Hmm. Hmm.
She's tolerating me pretty well. But the more you investigate, of course,
Hmm.
the more you
Yeah.
look into this,
It looks back at
you
you.
it looks back at you.
Yeah.
It's and then it gets to that interesting question of what is the it?
Right.
Are
Is it
you
really
the
you?
it?
Is it just really you? That's what I keep getting at. Is it you? Is it honestly always you? You know, that's kind of where I'm cycling back around. I finally, after all these years, said screw it. And I started writing myself. And I've been writing kind of this loose amalgam
Mm,
of kind of my life's experience with all this and where I've coming at it and kind of my theories and things that I don't think people are kind of necessarily looking at, but could be way on or way off of the topic. But it keeps coming back to you. I keep
mm,
coming back to you. It's a really you thing. Like it's the you in ufology, right? It's you.
mm.
It's really you. I mean, I think it's
Yeah.
kind of the title, the loose title of my book right now. It's the you and you, because even if you look at these big massive events, like the Ariel school sighting, you look at these
Hmm.
things where all these people that are still varying degrees of, I saw this, I saw that, the grown-up saw this, the kids saw that, and even the kids had just, it was just, it's individual for every person, but to every single person there, it was a very centric you person. And I think you did that in the story. I think in your book, you kind of followed, the main character throughout the story where at the beginning, from the beginning to end, the whole and correct me if I'm wrong, but this is what I got of it was that, it was a journey.
Hmm.
You have this experience, you have these experiences, but it changes. Your life changes. You grow up, you become an adult. Your world, your paradigm changes, your perceptions change. But you still hold on to that magic or whatever that little bit is that you
Hmm.
experienced, from an earlier part of your
Hmm.
life. And but you look at it at a different. You're looking at it from a different frame,
Hmm.
and all those little things that happen along the way build upon themselves to get you where you're at currently. And that's kind of how what I got
Yeah.
out of your book. that was
Well,
cool
thank you.
because yeah, it was yeah, hopefully that's kind of what you were going for.
Yes, yes.
Okay, cool. Yeah, because
Yeah.
that's kind of what I got. It's just like we have all of these things that we don't take into account. You have somebody sitting there going, "Hey, I was abducted by an alien," and immediately half the population's like, "This guy's, what is he smoking?" Right? This and the other people are like, "Shit, that kind of happened to me," and other people are like, "Well, maybe," and where's there room for everybody to meet in the middle, or at least be open to the conversation that there's more to whatever is going on around us than we can perceive or we
Hmm.
do perceive on a daily basis. And the part that gets me is that there's the individual experience that nobody pays attention to. The part that, well, hell, I've lived my life and I've done this and I've been this and this and this has all led me to believe that, right? And I think that's kind of what I got out of the
Yeah.
book is that we go through all of this shit, good, bad, or indifferent, and it creates the box that we all live in.
I mean, you hit it right on the nose. And I was reaching for the imaginal.
Hmm.
And, the title of the book is Intentional for All We Know.
Right.
There's a lot we don't know.
Yeah.
So we feel comfortable putting things in a box. And uh, it's also not just us. It's kind of society has that demand on us and wants us to.
Right.
Uh, the stock market doesn't want us to be, you know, self-actualized beings enamored with the sacred. That's
Yeah.
not good for the bottom line. And we get in the way. And
Yeah.
also, and I think it comes out in the book too, it's very intentional that, the corporations that, run the world,
Hmm.
exploiting the natural resources, polluting our waters, polluting the air.
Right.
Um, it's it behooves them for us not to see a sacred relationship with the earth, with the
Hmm.
plants, with the birds, with the world, to be
Right.
enchanted. And that goes, it extends beyond this terrestrial realm.
Right.
And so I didn't want to say it, hit you over the head with as above, so below. I
Mhm.
didn't want to hit you over the head with these things, but that's where I was kind of going. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. And you get that. I mean, and the character, I mean, the story arc that you did is great. You feel sad for him. You're rooting for him. You see a lot of your own, I mean, self in there. And I think that was the way you wrote it. I mean, purposely is to kind of see
mhm,
the everyman or at least part of your own self in the discovery
mhm,
of accepting that things aren't exactly the way they are and having those key moments in your life that are defining, like you said, the death of a loved one and, love and lost and all
mhm,
these other things, those are, you know, time honored, um,
mhm.
tropes that all humans go through. Right. And everybody can relate to. And, crafting that in a way that involves the paranormal without making it cheesy or
Mhm.
like it's crafted. I think that's a hard thing to do because we all have these conversations. I mean, as well as I do, you can sit next to somebody and everybody has a UFO story or a Bigfoot story or a ghost story or something, right? But they're not going to just come out and tell you until they feel it's okay, until they feel like
Mhm.
they feel like comfortable enough to be okay. And I think that your book and other conversations with scientists, with philosophers, with people from all different fields need to have yeah, it's okay, we can talk about this, it's
Right.
okay, right? We may not agree on any of it or whatever it is, but it's okay to talk about it. It's not one of these things that we put away and don't speak about anymore, right? So
Yeah,
I think that's
absolutely.
your story, I think, helps to do that because it humanizes it. I hate to say that word.
Well, thank you. There are, I so much appreciate that. I
Yeah.
have a good friend I become friends with. One of the beautiful things about this journey is the people I've met.
Yeah.
And then I'll get an email from someone through my website to say, "Hey, I had an experience. I'd like to talk to you." And how
Hmm.
beautiful that someone would talk to me about something that's been burning and intimate.
Right. Right.
I'm so honored. Um, what I hoped to achieve, there's a kind of literary book. So it's a fiction book. It's
Right.
fiction because you can't, first of all, you can't get a memoirish book published by even esoteric publishers
Hmm.
will not publish your personal account.
Right.
They say self-publish.
Really.
So there's that, and I have found. So I'm in the literary world. I mean, I have I used to have a podcast, and I would interview writers and poets.
Yeah.
If you have the word UFO or paranormal, they're not going to pick up the book.
Really.
So I was hoping to bring my enthusiasm and this journey, and it has been deep. I
Hmm.
have gone very deep, and I'm not saying that I'm an expert. I'm just curious. And my wife knows, she says, when you get hooked, there's no stopping you. It's like the madman has gone down the
Uh,
rabbit hole.
I've heard that
But
before too.
but she I think she finds it kind of fascinating. She sits there eating potato chips listening, oh wow, interesting. She was
I,
a religion major. She
oh
has
well,
sympathy for this
well,
stuff too.
there you go. Yeah, my wife is more like, "Don't get us abducted." What the hell? What
Yeah, I
the
heard you
hell are you
saying
doing?
that.
Yeah,
You're
she's like,
inviting them in.
"Yeah, you're like, dude, quit doing this shit. I don't want to get abducted, you asshole. Like,
Right.
quit calling them in."
But she still loves you, and you're probably expressing something. And the fact that she says that, and I think you discussed this
Yeah,
with Darren,
yeah.
that there's a kind of unconscious recognition of it.
Yeah,
Hmm.
there's definitely that. There's the yeah. I mean, it's fascinating, to me that she didn't want to admit that we had an experience together for it just with me personally. It
Yeah.
wasn't like we're in a group of 100 people we're talking about it. She just to me she was like, "Nah, that didn't happen." And I'm like,
Right.
You were driving the fucking car and you saw it. You didn't want to pull over because you're scared." Yeah, yeah. And then
There you go.
eventually, it was just okay, fine, but I don't know what it was. I'm like, okay, we can start there. you know,
Yeah.
that's the
It's
place to start, right?
it's fascinating. There's the owl story in the book, which I kind of
Yeah,
reshaped a bit, but
yeah.
that actually did happen. And
Wow.
it happened. I was driving with my wife. We're driving. It was during COVID,
Yeah,
and I live in a small New York City apartment. We just were boxed in for, I don't
right.
know, gosh, I don't remember.
Feels like forever, right? Years.
I lost track.
Yeah,
We're boxed in. We rent uh, an Airbnb in Connecticut.
yeah.
Pardon me, just that sore
Oh,
throat
yeah,
business.
yeah,
We rent an Airbnb, and so we're driving on the main highways. It's raining out. It's late. It's dark. We get off the main highway. Now we're on local highways.
yeah,
It's dark. It's raining. As we're driving, can't really see too well, so she slows down. She's driving. I had a couple of beers and a
yeah,
bar on the way. We see frogs hopping along
yeah.
on the highway, scampering. We don't know what's going on. We look up and you see, I don't know, 50 feet ahead or so, looks like a traffic cone.
Mhm.
So we kind of slow down now, looking at the traffic cone, and we get up close. It is not a traffic cone, it's an owl.
Sitting in the road
Now, sitting on the road. And now my
in
wife
the
and I
in the
both,
rain.
in the rain, standing sentry. Now, my wife and I both said that it was a gray owl. It had to be near 4 feet,
Jeez.
which I didn't know a lot about owls. By the way, there's a great book about by Mike Clellan,
My clown, yeah.
Owl Connection
Yeah,
to the UFO. Now,
yeah.
I hadn't
Huge.
read the book yet. I
Yeah.
had not read the book. So the owl standing sentry, I go to get out of the car.
So you stopped the car.
We stopped the car. We
Yeah,
couldn't move,
yeah.
right? And I mean, unless we plowed over it, we couldn't even get around it. And at
Mm,
this point, we're just curious.
right, right, yeah. Why is there an owl
So
standing in the middle of the road in the rain? It's 4 foot
yeah,
tall.
4 foot tall, which is not a common height for an owl. That's a
No.
very, so as I go to get out, my wife says, "Get back in the car, you idiot. He'll
Yeah.
rip your eyes out." So I'm like, "Oh, okay." Get
Mm,
back in the car. Owl's just standing there. Lights are on in our car, kind of a standoff.
yeah.
His head swivels around at
Hmm.
some point and he lifts up his wingspan, I'm not great at these things, maybe 6 feet, and just like a spaceship, just like went away. It was as if because we now had gotten into this more pristine part of, it wasn't the main highway, and it was actually very beautiful lakes and
Yeah.
green grass and fresh air. And he was sort of saying, let me see, let me see if you're worthy to come into my domain. It had that feel.
Wow.
And, it to me, that was an encounter of some kind
Yeah, for
with
sure.
a different kind of intelligence who was sort of felt more intelligent than we were.
It's amazing how that is, right? Yeah. It's the owl thing is amazing. It's just it's a huge um I don't know. I was reading I think I so I had a neighborhood at skunks lately, right? And
Mm.
some random thing and I'm like, does anything hunt these? Like, no, why would anything it smells? Why does anything hunt a skunk? And there was like there's some kind of owl. I can't remember what it is, but it has no sense of smell. And they're the only ones that hunt skunks. It's like this one owl can't smell and it just eats everything. And I guess it is just, it eats
Wow.
skunks. So I'm like,
Isn't that amazing?
can you imagine how big, an owl's, skunk's not small either. We'll just
Right.
pick it up and take off with it. But yeah, it's like they can't smell. Like what the heck? They have
Mm.
like superhuman abilities. They can fly without nobody hearing them. They can see for miles, and it's just the night stalkers. But yeah, they can't smell, so they eat skunks. I don't know.
Isn't
Just a
that
weird.
kind of a wild adaptation that
Yeah,
how that worked out? And the hit that owl's reality is different from well, not every,
but most other
many
owls,
other
yeah,
and
yeah,
other, humans. That which repels us is of no consequence.
yeah. Amazing, right?
I think it's just incredible. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
that's one happy owl.
Yeah, no doubt. No, I mean, that's a. There were so many different in your book. There were so many different stories, and I'm like, there's no way he made this up. He probably did look most of this shit
There's definitely a lot of stuff. There's
that you had
definitely
to
a
have
lot of
done.
stuff. I would say the psychedelic experiences are, they're definitely true.
Yeah,
And those are the most formative experiences. Now, when I went into it, I
yeah,
did it as kind of, a dopey kid,
yeah.
not realizing what I was doing.
Right.
But what I was doing was uh, putting a crack in the cosmic egg and
Yeah.
really splitting open. It's a trauma from which I have still yet to integrate fully that experience. And part of that
Hmm.
integration is, was taking philosophy classes, was taking psychology classes, trying to understand the physiology of the brain, uh, and really taking me to this moment here. And I just recently participated in a no, John Hopkins had a research
Hmm.
paradigm. They're interested in talking to people that have had encounters with non-human intelligences while on psychedelics.
Really.
So this is not a one-off thing.
Right. Right.
This
Right.
is something people are very interested in.
Right.
Taking ayahuasca, it's like a very common. You are taken aloft, whisked away by some being
Hmm.
who is, you know, telling you these incredible secrets of the universe, showing you these amazing technologies and uh, geometrical structures, explaining things to you,
Right.
and you're just bedazzled by all of this incredible architecture. And you think of the parts of the Bible or
Hmm.
parts of uh, the Ramayana, descriptions in epic and religious literature of these kinds of things. Uh, isn't that peculiar that these things occur?
Yeah. And then my experience was I went into the black hole of hell and basically had diarrhea for 48 hours.
That's bad. Now, which was that? Which
The ayahuasca, yeah, that was
yeah,
yeah. So
Yeah, yeah.
you
Did you
know,
have the psychedelic part, or did you? Because it's
no, it went right to that.
ooh,
It was just that. It was just
yeah.
everything was dark, and I wanted my insides wanted to be outside for a long
Mm.
time. Yeah, that's all I got out of the whole thing.
Yeah. Well,
But that was like 1996. So think about that. That wasn't. It was more like one of those things where you get it on eBay and you put it in the Mr. Coffee. So that, I'm sure that wasn't exactly the experience that I should have been experiencing. But
yeah.
after that, it just kind of soured it for me. I'm sure the shamans have it all figured out, but that didn't.
Well, they have like diets, so you go
Mm,
through a kind of a preparation of
cleansing and
fasting and
yeah.
no sex, things like this, and
I think the
to
fasting thing probably makes sense because of the whole
stomach.
yeah, the stomach
Even
thing,
with
right?
mushrooms, I mean, mushrooms
Oh
kind
yeah.
of they can react very strangely in your stomach,
Oh yeah.
and they can make your stomach kind of bubble up. And
Oh
but
yeah.
uh, my wife and I have done mushrooms,
Yeah.
and I'm always there's always someone that's talking to me, and
Oh
I'm
yeah.
having there's another, and that other is me,
Right.
kind of,
Yeah.
but it isn't.
Hmm.
And we're having conversation, and it's some another aspect of I'm not saying I have final answers. I
No,
don't
no, no,
know
no, no.
exactly what's going on.
It feels, yeah, to me, it feels like the same thing. It allows you're allowing yourself to connect to the other parts of yourself that you wouldn't normally do.
Mhm.
To me, like this is a stupid analogy, but I think it's hilarious. Is like, like Superman 2 or 3 or whatever, where, bad Superman comes out and he's like unshaven and just dirty and, he's fighting Superman. And it's like, that's it. You get into that
Yeah,
spot where you're allowed to see the other side of yourself that you might not necessarily want to talk to or want to see, or
yeah,
the shit that you buried personally for yourself that you don't want to deal with. I mean, that might
yeah.
come up and it's probably important to deal with.
The
Um,
multiplicities of who we are.
yeah, yeah,
I
totally.
mean, are we the same person in every second, every day, every month, every year, decade? I mean,
Now my wife
there's
says I'm a different person every day.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I don't know what
Without
John I'm getting
coffee.
today. Yeah, exactly. I don't know. I don't know what John I'm getting. Me either. Yeah, no, that's it. And I think that it's important to have these conversations, and it's important to do, like you said. It's really interesting that you said that that publishers won't publish personal accounts. That's interesting that they
Yeah.
won't do that. But fiction is okay, right? As long as you put that fiction stamp on there, and
I
that
mean, and
just
then
is
you
one
have
of
to,
those society things, right?
yeah, it's a society thing, and you then you have to get a publisher that will publish that. So, is it, under what category is it being published?
Right, right.
So, I mean, I, I'm a writer.
Hmm.
I want to communicate the ideas that I have been excited about.
Hmm.
I hope that, and I've had some, folks from MUFON
Hmm.
read the book and say, I like what this book does.
Hmm.
Some people, nuts and bolts people say, this is bullshit. You're not the real thing.
Right.
And then I'm not for you.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
that's okay. I don't,
yeah.
no hard feelings.
Right,
And I hope I don't mean to poo-poo anyone's experience.
right.
And I am trying to engage in the conversation. I'm trying to broaden this, the, the, the circumference of people having it, and broach it to people to, you've probably had things happen, and you're maybe, however we're categorizing it,
Yeah.
I mean, walking into a church, hearing church music, seeing stained glass windows, eating the symbolic blood and body of Christ.
Hmm.
I mean, is that not an extraordinary magical experience?
Right.
No, it's not. It's
No, yeah. I said Catholic mass today, believe it or not, for the first time in
mm,
a long time. Was raised Catholic, unfortunately. Well, I was forcefully raised Catholic, as far as,
right, as I
be,
was.
yeah, yeah. And, I sat through mass today and, yeah. And you look at it and I guess, all those years being forced to sit through mass, grow kind of callous to the whole thing, what's going on. But it's basically a magical ritual, you know. When you get to the point of, the part where the priest is, consecrating the host, the
Hmm.
blood and the bread, the whole thing. It's basically what it is. And everybody's just thinking, oh yeah, it's just what we do. Yeah, okay, we have to sing the song, we have to kneel, we have to stand, we have to kneel, to stand and share, yeah, peace be with you, and all this shit. And then they're all, okay, what the,
Right.
I got soap opera's coming on, I gotta go. Like what the fuck, But everybody's like, it's one of the major religions of the world, and everybody's like, oh, you're not sitting through a magical episode, you're not doing a mystical experience. No, you're right. You just, it's happening. It's
Hmm.
commonplace now, but go do that in the woods with 15 people and they'll string you up.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And
They'll string you up and you'll be put in jail for being a Satanist or whatever, right? Like that's just,
yeah,
that's how we work as society, right? But to me, it's just mesmerizing, right? Where
it's pure magic,
it is.
and I think some perhaps where someone someone could go wrong in the uh, if the person communicating the experience, the priest, the shaman,
Right, right.
can tell the story in a way that's compassionate,
Hmm.
that's inclusive, that
Hmm.
doesn't kind of
Right,
scold,
right.
and can get you connected to the myth and to the magic.
Hmm.
I went, it's kind of a hard thing. My brother's son died about 2 years ago of drug addiction,
Oh, I'm sorry, man.
overdose. And his, thank you, his, the ceremony, you're glutted with all of this emotion.
Hmm.
And the ceremony was so powerful. I
Hmm.
mean, it was like sitting in a UFO and you were going through this, and there was illumination and there were beings swimming in and through.
Mm.
It, you know, who can tell me that that wasn't happening?
Right.
So, but that that experience, that depth of emotion took you and opened you, your porousness.
Hmm.
And the priest, who was funny, I knew growing up,
Hmm.
and he was kind of one of these rare guys that could kind of crack jokes with you and allow you to be inappropriate and say, curse words. And
Yeah, yeah.
he actually got me a job at the rectory
Oh, wow.
because I was kind of truant. I was getting in trouble, and he got me a job at the rectory, which is kind of fun, and allowed me to be, uh, got me a guitar, and I wrote a
Wow.
dirty blues song. And he wasn't like a pedophile priest; it's not that kind of thing.
Well, that's good.
But
Mm.
the I think we sometimes we get too fixed on the letter and miss the
Yeah.
spirit.
Right.
And the spirit is the thing that takes us and moves us instead of being uh, scolded and
Mm.
evangelized about how we live. We're all flawed, we're all struggling, we're all trying to do our best.
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah. And yeah. And I think that's, I mean, one of the things I don't know if I've said it publicly, but I always say it, friends or whatever, is that, the Catholic Church has existed for as long as it has because at one point it was magic. It was
mm,
legitimate magic. It was powerful. When you went
mhm.
into there and when all that stuff happened, like you said, you had an experience. You had the feeling, the spirit was there. Something happened. There's no way that the thing has existed for as long as it has without that, whatever has happened. My own personal 2 cents is that it, throughout time, money, corruption,
Yeah,
whatever you want
exactly.
to say, any
Yeah.
institution, you can look at Rome, right? For example, right? Well, the Roman Catholic Church. Anyway, that's an aside.
Yeah.
But
Well,
yeah,
governments,
yeah,
any institution.
yeah, any institution, right? Yeah, but there's, when I went today for the first time and whatever, there's still that glimmer. There's that tiny piece of glitter that hit the floor still, right?
Mm, yeah.
But I imagine at the beginning it was a full on light show, right?
Oh, I'm
It,
sure.
but
Yeah.
now, I mean, I think that's the only thing that's keeping people is that little spark is still there, but it's buried underneath all the bullshit.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's my personal 2 cents. It's there. It's really buried underneath the bullshit, but
We
it's
went
each,
to
but each person is different, right? Some people love it.
yeah, we went to York Cathedral in England, and
Ooh.
massive cathedral.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And you
Beautiful.
know, you're looking at these as you're looking down all those geometries,
And the columns
those
and yeah,
columns, the flying buttresses, and
the
actually, I
Freemasons
don't
build
think.
all that shit.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, I don't think that has flying buttresses because that's a Gothic church,
Oh yeah.
or maybe it does. I don't remember. But the thing is that you're overwhelmed by the beauty, this incredible beauty, and
Right.
how does that? And you hear we walked in, and it was they were doing, oh gosh, I'm losing the word for it, uh, uh, Vespers, and so it was just
Oh,
beautiful, and
wow.
they walked in singing a procession, and it was kids, older
Hmm.
people, different voices
Yeah.
singing in harmony, holding objects, relics and stuff.
Yeah. Wow.
It was kind of a beautiful. I was just transfixed. Even my at the time he was maybe 11.
Hmm.
He even dug it, and
Yeah.
all of that. How could you not be taken away your imagination by all of this and the uh, the way the liturgy, it was so profound.
Right.
You are but dust, and here you are on this earth, but a speck. In this beautiful language that's hundreds of years old. We went again. We went again to hear the to hear the Vespers. It was just too gorgeous, and it actually turned out to be the day of the Ascension.
Oh wow.
So, by the way, interesting. A guy comes from somewhere. God comes
Mm.
to this earth,
Right.
is sacrificed for our benefit, then ascends into heaven,
Right.
kind of like
Yeah.
you know.
Go right back up. Yeah. All of the. I mean, every religion ties into. It's the same thing. You come down from somewhere, right, and you go back up, and you ascend to. Nobody's going down, right?
Yeah, you don't want to go down, man. You don't want to
Yeah.
go down.
Yeah.
But
That's
lightning
technology.
bolts and cool kind of chariots of fire, and
Yeah.
everyone looks up and says, "Wow, what was that?"
And I think that's part of the whole UFO thing, man. I really do. I think it's like
Absolutely.
it's just that whole. I think Grant Cameron is it's called he has a thing called the theory of wow. It's the theory of wow. It's like why do they have lights on UFOs? That's Grant Cameron's thing. It's because they want you to pay attention to it. They want you to go up and go, wow, what is that, right? And I honestly think it's a lot of it is to wake people up out of the paradigm, right? A lot of the people that
Mhm.
we've spoken about that like I don't believe any of this shit, right? But when they see something they can't explain and it's up there, it's the whole
Mhm.
theory of wow, like wow, I don't know what that is, right?
Mhm.
Um, Conversely, I don't know if there's something growing around your feet. I don't think you'd be like, wow. You might be like, "Ugh." Step, you
What's
know,
that?
yeah, it's just fucking spider, like whatever, right? But yeah, I mean, and so it's interesting that we've gotten this far as a society, and we're just now having these conversations, right? And we're
Yeah.
writing and we're engaging in different ways. And thanks for
Yeah.
writing your book, man. Thank you for doing
Well,
it.
thank
And
you. Thank
yeah,
you. Thank you for reading it, because that's
yeah,
we live and we get great joy when someone says, "Oh, I read it," and
yeah.
ah, it wasn't crap. I enjoyed it, or I connected with it. Um,
Yeah, yeah. I know it was cool. Yeah, it was cool to see the journey, on his, the arc. Um, uh, and you find a lot of parallels with yourself in a lot of it, and then other times you're just like, wow, man, must be hard, or wild, and empathize. And I think I always say that empathy is the hidden superpower. I always think that empathy is the major
mhm.
power that we don't want to use. And I think a lot of that, if more people used it, we would be in a better place as a
Absolutely. Yeah.
race, a human race, right? And I think that any way we can do to open up those doors to empathy, to acceptance, to at least listening to the conversation is helpful. And I think your book does a lot of that. I think it does a lot of connections. I mean, it'd be cool to see how other people perceive it from different walks of life. I was kind of reading it, and when I got to the end of it, I was thinking like, I wonder if somebody from India would read this, what the hell they would think.
Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's very. I mean, an American perspective, but I was wondering, like, I wonder if someone from Iceland or from from India or something like that, would how would they perceive this? But the
I'd love
like
to
I said,
hear.
yeah, the core elements I think are there that people would kind of relate to, though, for sure. So
Yeah. Well,
good
thank
job,
you so
man.
much. Thank
Yeah,
you very
man.
much. It's available for pre-order now. I do
Awesome.
have a handful of copies on hand, so if folks are interested, you could go to
Yes.
my website, mikefiorito.com, and let me know if you want to. If I still have copies, I'll be glad to send them to you.
Oh, rad. Yeah, I definitely want a copy. Can you hook me up?
I
Can you give me
definitely
an
will.
autograph copy? Because
I certainly will. I thought I did,
awesome.
but maybe I just sent you a PDF. I don't remember.
Yeah, yeah. No, I got the PDF and yeah,
Okay.
I blazed through it. I actually read it and then
Wow.
I listened to it. I have an app that I listened to the PDF, so
Cool.
I did it twice because
You're a rock star, man.
I just wanted to kind of get different. Like when you read stuff, something happens, the kid comes in or whatever else, and whatever. But and as kind of I could tend to work and multitask, and I can listen to a lot of stuff too. So it was interesting to have um, you know, the audio of it was pretty rad to
That's cool.
kind of follow, along with what I'd already perceived, and it was interesting. And um, a lot of the times when the songs are coming, I was like, oh man, it'd be cool if we queued that up. Right? gotta go hit that song up, right? To kind of get into the mood, right? So yeah, that'd be
Well,
cool to
that's
do
great.
that. Yeah, I don't know how licensing works, but that'd be rad for the audiobook.
So just as a note,
Yeah.
I wrote a book uh, inspired by a bluegrass musician. Just that was the prior book,
Oh yeah.
Mescalito riding his white horse,
Oh nice.
and you run into all kinds of copyright. Now,
Oh
Peter
yeah, I bet.
Rowan, who that book was kind of principally inspired by,
Yeah.
he actually gave me the right to use his lyrics.
Oh
But
cool.
you're getting into all kinds of copyright stuff. Um,
Yeah.
so you could play it, I guess. I don't even know, but I'm working on something now that's related to music,
Oh cool.
and it won't have Michael Jackson's music on it or stuff like that. So, but there'll be some kind of component that you could use.
Oh, that's rad. Yeah, I think that's cool. And the whole mixed media stuff now is pretty rad too, just to have that whole experience. But yeah, I mean, you did a good job of just putting that whole King Diamond. I never got into King Diamond either, man. I just can't
That was
get
wild.
I can't get into King Diamond, man. I it's a whole different subgenre. I never did. I never did.
Yeah, it was fun to go and experience.
Oh,
As you know, just it was totally crazy in a way.
I bet that's like going to like an ICP concert or something like that.
Especially
Like
on mescaline. I mean,
yeah,
geez,
yeah. I
whoa,
can't even
whoa,
imagine. Can't even imagine going to a King Diamond concert on Mescalin. That would just be fucking
into a
wild.
dungeon practically in the
Yeah.
farthest reaches of Brooklyn. I mean, it
Oh
was
my
like,
God.
geez, the bowels of the earth.
I had a buddy take me one time. He lived in Williamsburg. We went to Brooklyn, and he took me. He knows I'm into that stuff. I'm into hot rods, in the '50s and rockabilly shit. And he's like, "Dude, we're going to this rockabilly bar." And I'm like, "No way!" So we went to somewhere in the middle of. I don't even know where we're at in Brooklyn. This rockabilly bar, and
Sam's maybe, or I don't know.
maybe it was night at a time. I don't know I don't know what I
Yeah.
had on, but I had a wife beater, so I took my shirt off. So I wore that. And my wife is just in jeans and a t-shirt. And luckily there was a chick there selling dresses for 50. I'm like, buy that because we're not getting out of here alive if we don't go, if we don't go in there. I'm gonna roll up my pant legs and and it was a great time. But yeah, like as soon as you hit that wall, everybody was just like, what? Who are these people that aren't in our club? I was like, imagine being on mescaline at a King Diamond concert, not being into it and not knowing what was going on.
And my hair was more like this. It wasn't like long black. I looked more like Arnold Horshack, kind of.
She just had this
So
big fro.
yeah, we were derelict, but of a different kind of style.
So that'd be wild, man. You're probably just like, I gotta get out of here alive. Like, I just gotta
Yeah,
go. Like, I'm not gonna get out of here alive.
They let us. I mean, overall, it was pretty cool, and people were just digging the music. They were
Yeah.
super into it, thrusting their head, and
Wow.
the musicians are actually pretty amazing.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
All of that
Very
kind of
technical.
classical kind of
Yeah.
scales and things. Not my cup of tea, but I'm glad I went. Um, and
Experienced
I
it.
What a cool thing. He literally comes out of a coffin and he sings in a skull kind of microphone.
Right.
It's like made from a skull, and it's theatrical.
Yeah. Oh
It's
yeah.
it's bizarre and kind of funny, but
But I'm
it's
mescaline that to mess you up.
whoa,
Just like this guy came out of a coffin.
whoa.
Mm. Like, what did I walk myself into? Everybody's a zombie around me. Like, I can't understand.
I mean, on some level it was traumatic,
Oh yeah.
but very transportive and took you to a place that I'm glad I came back from. Pretty dark, pretty
Yeah.
dark,
Yeah.
and funny.
No, I bet. I bet. And you get down those rabbit holes and you're like, man, you kind of understand why people like follow fish around and the Grateful Dead. And it's like, you kind of get it. And then there's the whole other spectrum, right? You got the whole other side of the King Diamond and that whole, thing too. And I guess that's kind of the thing. It's just whatever you're into, man. And,
I like
that's a,
it all. I like
yeah.
a classical Bach. I
Yeah.
like bluegrass. Love jazz, love rock and roll, love you know music from other cultures and
Oh, yeah.
uh, uh, all kinds of stuff. So whatever's good is what I like, or
Right.
good to me.
Right. Oh, yeah. 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 I'm right there. I don't pigeonhole myself. I don't know. It's just like new country. I just can't listen to new, whatever
Yeah,
that is.
yeah. It's this weird
Whatever that is.
hybrid of pop and rap and kind of
Yeah, just for me, that's not it. But everything else is cool. I mean, I'm cool with everything else. But yeah, that's cool. And I really think that music transcends this whole experience in some way. I
mhm.
really don't know how, but I mean, honestly,
Sound
yeah,
on some level, just sound itself,
right.
emotion, sound. It's another modality,
I really think it is.
another
Yeah,
tool.
yeah. Yeah, Grant Cameron has another book called oh shit,
Tuned
it's got
in.
yeah, I think is it tuned
Yeah.
in or is it the
Yeah.
music is the message or something like that or
I
yeah,
think it's tuned in something. I forget.
yeah, yeah, where he's talking about how a lot of the artists had, basically the songs came to them and they were like, I don't know where it came from. It just came from, and
Right.
it was all just written, and a
In
lot of it is,
totality.
yeah, very esoteric and,
Right.
Zeppelin and Neil Young and,
Hmm.
after the gold rush and yeah, a lot of those things. And it's like, wow, man, because you get into those songs and they're good. And it's amazing to hear the artist, Neil Young, where'd you come up with that? I have no idea.
Yeah.
Just came to me. I was like, bam,
It
and it
just kind of
resonates with
was
people.
gifted. It just
Yeah,
was presented. Like even scientists will say, Frick
yeah,
said he dreamed the DNA
double helix.
molecule. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So things happen like that. But dreams are not to be
Discarded at all.
miscounted. Yeah.
No, no,
Yeah.
not at all. Yeah, I mean, like, yeah, amazing. People have changed their whole entire lives. They've been prophetic and other
Hmm.
things. And yeah, Dr. Jeffrey Mishlove, speaks about a dream that basically started his whole career. Where he dreamt of his uncle who had just passed away and he didn't know he passed away, and he had this whole experience and like basically lived it out when he woke up and it's like that's
Hmm.
it. This is what I'm doing. And there's all kinds of things like that. And there was a whole I can't remember who it was. It was one of the philosophers, but there was a dream institute or college back in the I don't know, it was Platonic or maybe pre-Platonic era where people would
Yeah.
go and it was like a whole study of people's dreams.
Yeah. Maybe
And
Pythagoras,
maybe
but yeah,
yeah, somewhere
many
around in that. Yeah,
many
yeah.
cultures have that. I mean, the Tibetans, some feel that you lucid dreaming, you kind of you try to work on the technique of lucid dreaming to know that you're dreaming,
Hmm. Hmm.
and also to know that when you're awake, you're dreaming, and so
Hmm.
that you're always dreaming.
Right. That's
And
wild.
so, am I awake? Am I awake? And then when you're dreaming, are you awake? And this idea that you kind of put some, you don't put all your eggs in one basket,
Right.
that this is a sort of provisional thing.
Mhm.
Of course, stuff is real. We want to protect the ones we love. And
Right.
if you step on my toe, it's going to hurt, but there's provisional aspects to it.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
but the idea of lucid dreaming to keep you awake. I mean, the word Buddha means awake,
Mhm.
awake, you know.
It's wild. I love it. I love that we're in it and we're in it together. And thank you for taking the time and to write your book. And thank you for taking the time to chat with me. And
Hey, John, thank you. I really appreciate it. Fun, great talk. And man, we went everywhere, and that's unscripted, just fun. So thank you.
yeah, no, thank
Thank you
you.
for
Thank
having me.
you, man. I appreciate it.